How's everybody doing tonight? Just decided to go live. It's been a minute. Let's let people fall in. Where is my chat at? Oh, there it is. Shout out to y'all. Struggle streaming a little bit, but we're going to get it going. I can't believe how quick this year is gone. Give me a 1 if you can hear me in the chat. Let me check myself on my phone. Whew, man. Hope everybody's having a nice weekend. What's up, NC Worker? Appreciate you, one. What's up, A? I made the mistake of leaving my knock roll without nothing lined up. Uh-oh. Why you do that, AO? Just got to get back on the grind. Were you remote on the knock roll or was you going in? You said we're going to run the article. Then if you looked, I actually did a short on the city of Dallas, the city council. And I'll probably play that video while people are following. It's super short. What's happening there? Then I actually found the incident response report for the city. So I thought that would be a good thing to go over it. Shout out to Struggle Security in the house. Definitely go check my man Struggle Security out. I'm sure most of my audience a lot of people came from him. I was remote. I got sick of that place. Pay raise, etc. Yeah, but you got to be careful, AO. Now you got to get on your grind, man. But now, and two is I ain't trying to scare you, man. Sometimes those remote roles are hard. We were talking about that on, I think it was me and Struggle Security. I think we were chopping it up with Tim. When you look on Indeed, remote roles, it'd be like 200 people applied for it. So, so once again, we're going to read this quick article of the Dallas. It was the Royal Ransomware. And once again, I found the incident response report, which I thought was cool. So, and two, as a cybersecurity professional, and I'm sure Struggle Security does this. A lot of times you read other people report to make sure your client or your place of work won't be accessible to the same hack that fell to the city of Dallas. So I perused it a little bit, but it'd be interesting. Let's see. No pad. Let's see what A317. I left my full remote SOC role last winter to settle into a network engineering role. Now I won't go back. Yeah, shout out to the network engineers. That's probably the only thing I haven't done. That and kind of red scheme stuff, penetration test, pretty much everything else I've done before. So once again, let's read this quick article before we jump in and read the incident report from the city of Dallas. And two, I like to see how people do their reports. You kind of learn how other people. There was some couple interesting things in it. So Dallas said Royal Ransomware breached its network, stolen accounts. The city of Dallas, Texas, said this week that Royal Ransomware attack that forced it to shut down all IT systems in May started with stolen account. So you got to shut down your whole IT system. You know you're in trouble, right? That means they're deep into your network. Shout out to the network engineer in the house. So we got them on deck. We probably trying to see things pinging. Things going to CC command and control, trying to get to China. So let's see. But once again, it was a stolen account. So Royal Access gained access to the city network using stolen domain service account in early April. Maintained access compromised between April 7th and May 4th. Okay, that's a pretty short time. Not too bad. During this period, they successfully collected and exfiltrated 1.169 terabytes worth of files based on a system log data analysis conducted by city officials and external cybersecurity. So that's a hidden gem right there. Worth of files based on system log data analysis. So the first thing is what are you logging? How are you logging? Shout out to Cisco buying Splunk for a crazy amount of billions, right? So Cisco, you got to be all that network traffic. You got to send it to the SIM, right? SIM, we know Splunk is an 800-pound gorilla in there. So you see it right there on there. Are you logging the things you need to do to trace what you're doing? Shout out to man, if Struggle Security, if you don't have the logs, how are you going to trace them? Right? We know the hackers too, if you leave the logs on a box their own, a lot of times they try to delete them. So are you doing syslogs? Are you getting your logs off site? Do you have enough space? Shout out to AWS. They have their deep freeze? One of them deep something. So you can get a couple terabytes for pennies. Now it's going to take you 12 hours to get those logs back. But when you log, especially on Cisco, shout out to Excel Pro. Appreciate you coming in. But once again, are you logging? I was working with a client too. Is a lot of times when I talk to SIM guy, I ask them, how do you know what to log? What are your login requirements? What is your retention? Right? A lot of people know I do a lot of IRS work. IRS, you got to keep it for 7. You got to keep your logs for 7 years. Right? So 2 is if you delete some data that's in your logs, how do you go back and reconstitute your logs and figure out what data changed? Right? So that's always an interesting thought pattern to come about if you got hacked. Once again, are you logging what you're supposed to log? And right, and logging can be expensive, especially if it's on-prem. That stuff was astronomical. Once again, I think Azure and AWS making it a lot cheaper now, but still, though, you got to make sure you got your logs right. The gang also prepared the ransomware deployment phase by dropping Cobalt Strike command and control beacons across the city systems at 2 a.m. on May the 3rd. Roy started to deploy the ransomware payload using legitimate Microsoft administrative tools to encrypt servers. That's one of the good things and bad things. The criminal gonna encrypt stuff, so you tell what they encrypted to what you encrypted. A lot of times when it's going on network, once again, shout out to A137. If I encrypt the data, you can't tell if it's mine or the criminals, right? Because it's encrypted, meaning you can't read it, right? So that's always the interesting part about encryption. Are you just gonna encrypt it and try to figure it out on the fly, or are you getting to tap points where you can unencrypt it, read it, and encrypt it again, right? But now you're getting a little sophisticated, right? Because wherever you decrypting that, if a hacker gets to it, now you can read it, right? So we call it going dark. Do you want just all your data encrypted, right? So you can't read it unless you unencrypt it. So once again, then your network guys can't read it either, but the hackers can't read it either, right? So once again, you got to balance that. Gang also prepared. Oh, there it is, 2 a.m. After detecting the attack, the city initiated mitigation efforts, taking high priority servers offline to impede royal progress. Simultaneously, start service restoration efforts with up a team of external and external cybersecurity. So once you get to big companies, let me know if you want to come up, Struggle. And we talk about this a lot of times, is if you're a small company and you get hacked, NIST says you need a third-party expert in forensics, right? Like I work for a large state as a consultant. The state didn't have the expertise on site. So we had a third party, kind of like, aka Struggle Security. He works for the big firm. We had those guys on retainer. So if we get stuck, we can reach out to them and get some assistance, because some of those attacks can be novel, which means they're hard to figure out, right? So you want to have your internal, your external. And 2 is you got to have that communication. And I got a couple of videos. That's why you do incident response exercises, right? So when this happens, you don't want to be trying to figure it out. So we do it where we do an exercise, we do a tabletop, and we bring in our external users. Okay, if this happens, and we reach out to you, what's your SLA time? Is it 24 hours? Is it 48 hours? I'm sure Struggle Security get on the airplane, but that retainer is going to be a little higher, right? So your company, what level is your security, right? And 2, once again, what's the classification level? If you're a hospital, man, you need somebody on site ASAP, right? Because people could be dying. Right now, if you're DNR, which do hunting license, right? Hey, you can show up a week later, right? So you got to classify your data. But once again, you still got to do an incident response to figure out what does that communication looks like. Let's see what A317 saying. Let me see. I'd be curious to know how often they get penetration testing and how the privilege escalation portion goes. These cities got to increase there, but you're right. I'm hoping that's going to be in an incident response. I know from NIST A137, I do a lot of Fed work. Shout out to struggle in the federal space, especially for the IRS. We have to do a penetration every 18 months. And two is we had to do the more sophisticated side was when we do a red team penetration test for a federal client, we give them low-level passwords and we let them in the conference room because we assume somebody's going to click on something. You're going to get people on your network, right? So we put them in a conference room. We give them low-level stuff to see, like you said, can they do privilege escalation? Can they do east and west on the network and move lateral, right? That's one thing you don't want people to do, lateral, because most networks go north and south, right? When you start going lateral, right, that's a whole different beast, right? 8317, but from a federal NIST and high trust HIPAA, I believe it's 18 months. So for that, that's one reason I miss working in the Fed space. They force you to do that. So if you get in that Fed space, the money's a little better because they have to do those type of tests. But once again, we're going to read this article, then we're going to jump into their report. So once again, right there, you got your internal and your external cybersecurity expert. Once again, when you do your incident response exercise, and we're going to talk through it when we look at the report, is you want to include your third-party users. You want to include your cybersecurity experts you're going to use, how you're going to communicate. Once again, what's their SLA to get on the plane? What's their turnover? What do you need set up so they can start looking at it? We know the SIM, we know the logs. A lot of times you want to make a copy of the VM because time you're cashing out processes, you cashing out memory, some of that stuff you want to dump to a file system so they know at that time what it looks like. But you need to, once again, work with your third-party experts to figure out what do they need. And two is you don't want them waiting because as soon as they get on the plane, some guys are billing you $300 an hour. So you want to have your stuff set up. So when they hit the ground, they can log in that VM. Hopefully you got a, we call it a cybersecurity network, where you can copy all the VMs, copy the database. Because a lot of times they want to do half copies, dump the memory, dump the services, so they're ready to hit the ground running. Once again, let me know. I got a video. Well, just look at my my channel. I got video on incident response exercise. Process restoring all your servers took just over 5 weeks. May 9th, and the financial servers were reviewed on June 13th when the last server affected by the attack. The waste management server was restored, right? So obviously they got to contain. They probably deleted because we always say we're going to drop our VMs because you're going to rebuild them. Hopefully you're going to rebuild them with the gold image, and the gold image, whatever security you hole you had in there, hopefully you have that patch. The city report, which we're about to look at, that the personal information was 26,212 Texas residents. A total of 30,000 plus individuals was potentially exposed due to the attack. That's not a bad number, actually. The OR website indicated personal information such as name, address, social security. That's not good. Health information. That's not good. Health insurance information and such information was exposed. This is a big issue right here. City, so far, Dallas City Council set the budget at $8.5 million for the ransomware attack for the final cost. Dallas is the 4th largest area and the 9th largest city in the United States with a population of 2.6 billion. That's why I said that 30,000 wasn't too bad when you got 2.6 million people, right? So we always got to keep that in mind. So shout out to my man, Auditing with Addy. Check him out. We both auditors, so I need to get him on my show. That's cool. Check out the replay. But go subscribe to my man. Check out his channel. He does some great stuff. But once again, that's $8.5 million. They pay for their ransomware issues, consultants, I guess servers, time, all that was built in. What was it? 8.5. There it is. Set a budget $8.5 million for the ransomware attack and restoration errors, with the final cost to be shared later. That's actually a pretty decent cost. The ones I've seen usually like $20-30 million. So from that, I guess that's not too bad. But theoretically, if you spent that and got talented people and got some more software for 8.5, you might could have prevented the attack, right? And that's one of the reasons cybersecurity people make decent money, because if we mess up or lacking, right, that's 8.5, just, I ain't gonna say flush down, but the ransom notes delivered via network printers. Local media first reported city police communication and ITs were shut down on Monday the 3rd because of some suspected ransomware attack. Remote notes delivered via network printers. Shout out to Struggle Security. Yeah, actually, one of his favorite attacks, I believe, was, and we did the simulation, is going from print servers. A lot of times print servers aren't locked down. Print servers, I think people are scared to lock down because when you lock them down, it makes it a lot harder for people to print, right? And that print queue is a favorite attack vector for a lot of people. So I'm really cognizant of making sure my print servers are locked down. Wednesday morning, the city's security monitoring tools notified our SOC that it's likely ransomware attack had been launched within our environment. So, the city has confirmed the number of servers have been compromised with ransomware, impact several functional areas, including Dallas Police Department website. The city of Dallas explained this statement on May the 3rd. The city team, along with its vendors, were actively working to isolate the ransomware to prevent spreading. We talked about that lateral movement. So once they get in, they're trying to affect a lot of stuff. To remove the ransomware from affected servers and to restore any servers currently impacted, the mayor and city council was notified of the incident pursuant of the city incident response plan. We talked about that. I got a couple incident response videos. The mayor and city, and that's one thing that really caught me off guard. Shout out to Kenny, is when you attack a large state agency and services going down, that's going to affect the constituents. They might not vote for the mayor and governor because they believe they didn't handle that particular issue correctly, right? I work once again for a large state, and the mayor actually called us one day. So when the mayor's people start coming to see you, trying to figure out what's going on, that's not a good thing. So when you're at these agencies, especially at large states, when multiple agencies start getting hacked, because a lot of times when you work for a state agency or a large federal agency, they're using the government network or the state network. So when it gets hacked, there's 20, 30, or even 50 agencies that could be impacted, depending on where the ransomware goes. Usually the agencies have their own coordinated out spot, right? Shout out once again to the network engineer. We want our own couple of subnets. We want our hardened area where all our agency stuff at. But once it gets in the network, depending on who's communicating with what, and depending on how the network engineers set it up, if he didn't segment it right, you can start getting lateral movement, and somebody's ransomware problem can become your problem quite easily. Let's see what my man DP Scribe said. I think that's what isn't as bad. Oh, facts. MGM. I might do a rack on MGM. So I need everybody to comment on this. Well, who's out? We got 14 in the chat. I need a 1 if you would have paid the ransomware like Caesars, or 0 if you would not. I think I would have paid like the ransomware like Caesars, because it seemed like they didn't have any problems. They spent their money. The hackers got their money and went away. So 0 if you wouldn't have paid the hackers, or 1 if you would have paid the hackers, or 0. What we got? Everybody need everybody in the chat hitting that up. Would you pay the ransomware or not? Zeros, no. We doing binary. Zeros, no. All 1 is yes. So who would pay the ransomware? Let's see. Public sector, we don't have a large budget. That makes sense. It was more. No, that is true. Shout out to that is true. That's true. The only they don't have a big budget, but a lot of times is a lot of states pull their resources. So what happens is all the states chip in on their IT information. So their budget from some of the big states are bigger because all the agencies chip in on the security and the IT information part. So I think sometimes struggle that it could be a little better, like I said, because all the agencies chip in for their for their IT. Once again, I'm in Indiana, and I know that's kind of how they do it, and most states around, most bigger states do that. The reason you do that is the smaller agencies have no budget. The bigger ones kind of chip in. They get a little upset because they feel like their money's not used to the best of their ability. But you kind of pool your resources. Because when I worked in there, I was surprised. We had all the best networking equipment, database equipment. We was getting some of the bigger clouds. We had some of the bigger SIMs. A lot of times I mention it because the bad part, and me and my boss talk about, most large states do RFPs, and those RFPs are public because you can see what most states buy, right? So let's see, we got 011. Okay. Once again, me and my buddy was going about it is the Biden administration actually told large private companies they should not pay because when you pay, right, they know there's money. But if I'm Caesar or MGM, I have shareholders. I got my stock. I got my business, right? Because I probably did want MGM. They had people that couldn't get in their rooms, right? So from a business person, I probably would pay. From a cybersecurity professional, I wouldn't pay, right? So you got to figure out, because you always got to balance the business with security, right? From a security perspective, I would definitely say not to pay. But if I got shareholders and I got people who can't get in the room, but two is if I'm a hospital and my system's not up, I can have people, deleted or dying. So, you got to balance all those things up too. Let me see my 3 0. Let my handlers pay so we can keep the hard rep. No, facts. And two is I don't know if Struggle Security them offer that. And once again, I don't know if he want to say who he works for, but a lot of the bigger services, what's up, Tech Shop? A lot of the bigger consulting firms and larger businesses, they give you a cybersecurity negotiation to negotiate with the ransomware guys. They know how to talk them down. I guess they got people in the industry. So they got specialties or specialized people to help you with that negotiation. I guess they say 7, you can talk them down to 5, right? So that's actually a hidden gem. But yeah, so y'all got a negotiator struggle? Y'all got negotiators with the firm? Once again, the SOC, we're going to talk about the incident response plan. Once again, network confirmed. They confirmed the ransomware gang was behind the attack after the picture of the note was shared. So this is the note the gang printed out on a printer. Fortunately, we got you covered. We'll offer you a unique deal. Did they show the monies? Meantime, let's explain the case. Save money on your security. Facts, man. So you can haggle with them. So they're still with the printer note. Believes it has emerged as an offshoot of the Conti gang. Upon its launch in January 2022, Royal used encryptors from other ransomware operators, Alpha V and Black Cat, to avoid drawing attention. However, these subsequents began utilizing their own encryptors in their own throughout the year. Ransomware operations underwent a rebranding at the end of 22, adapting the name Royal and emerging as one of the most active gang targeting. While Royal is known for exploiting security flaws in publicly accessible devices to breach target's network, it also frequently resorts to callback phishing attacks to gain initial access to the network. When the target calls the phone number embedded in the email camouflage a subscription renewal, the attacker used social engineering to trick the victim into installing a remote access software that provides threat actors with access to their network. So that's a big thing. Once again, too, is you should have specialized training. Yep, Struggle Security, he got the negotiators on deck. I was surprised when I saw the negotiators on deck. I guess I didn't expect to see that, but there's a lot of ways to do it. So that's it. So let's look at the incident response. Once again, if you look into the description, I'll put it in there too if you want to show your work or just talk about it later. Let me make this. Let's see what that looks like on the screen. Oh, that don't look too bad. So there it is. We're going to go over it. City of Dallas ransomware incident, May 2023. That's when it happens. They done went through a whole bunch of stuff. So let's check it out. Let me see. Where is the... Make that a little bigger for the. Let me make that a little bigger for the old people, aka me. So there we go. So structured security, they got negotiators on deck too. So part of incident response is, like they said, who's your third party? What other companies are you going to work with? Part of NIST says, once again, most people know I do federal work. NIST says you got to have a third party forensic company on deck. Even if you don't use them, you might use them, and if it's something complicated, you're gonna need them. So the government says you gotta have them on deck. You don't have to pay them. You don't have to pay a retainer. Once again, you just need to know what that communication is, so when you need them, they'll be on deck, and you understand how that gonna work. Once again, I do incident response from a federal level, meaning what's the communications? How do you get things set up? I don't do the forensics part. Once again, I make sure sometimes the VMs copy. I work with the cloud engineers to make sure they understand what that is. And once again, NIST from a federal level, HIPAA, high trust, IRS Pub 1075, they tell you they need to set up. So from there, when their auditors come in, you got to have a plan already set up once again to do that communication. So we're gonna just peruse through this. We're gonna do it the hard way. I thought about making slides, but we're gonna just read through it, do it the hard way. Inside of this, we're gonna scan through. Not too long, quick 30 pages, and a lot of these we're just gonna scan through and touch, right? We're gonna dig deep. So usually these are the people in charge at the top: CFO for the City of Dallas, Director of Department of Information, technology service, of course, and and most small and medium companies don't have IT risk management, right? That lets you know you're dealing with a larger firm. Shout out to GRC. They get a lot into that risk management. That's usually who I work for when I go on site or I work for companies. Let's see, the compliance division related to the City of Dallas 2023 ransomware incident remediation efforts and resolution. Talks about their assistance, general source acknowledgement. These are all the government people, right? Some of the source information was gathered from the elements from the United States federal government. We talked about that. But non-limit, my favorite one is I'm a NIST guy. When you get hacked from a government or state perspective, especially from a state perspective, Department of Homeland Security actually has an agency in every state, because when the state gets hacked, the network, you can have 20 or 30 agencies. Department of Homeland Security from a state level handles that. Then they're going to push it up to the feds, because if this happened in multiple states at the same time, 2 or 3, they feel like it could be a nation state attack. So that's why they want you to tell the Department of Homeland Security, because they want to check with all the other states to figure out if we're getting attacked as a nation. I always tell my boss, I don't like snitching on myself, but from a nation state, we always, once again, work with Department of Homeland Security. Then once again, there's usually a state Department of Homeland Security that reports to the federal level. So let's keep rolling. DOJ, Department of Justice. A lot of times Department of Justice are on there because most of those state agencies, each state attorney general now has a report notification. So if you get hacked, you got like 72 hours or 48 hours to let that particular state know. So once again, the DOJ is going to be in there. So these are all the things we're going to hit at the high level, right? We know the Royal Group was there. It was their ransomware. We just talked about notification, direct costs, malware, endpoint response, incident response plan, intrusion and incident timeline. So you got to kind of, we're going to look at it. My boss is actually excellent at that. You got to write it up like a police report, right? So a lot of people like to see that. operational risk factors, city under constant cyber attack. If you look at most cities and you talk to them, they're actually getting scanned billions of times. They're getting probed a lot. This is it. So city technical debt, software protocols, factors directly mitigating the impact of the incident. So what do you have in place to stop it? All right. If you get ransomware, what's blocking that lateral? One of the hot topics, it's kind of dying down a little bit, but zero trust. Zero trust is the framework to stop lateral movement. So every product now has zero trust. Cisco has zero trust. AWS has zero trust. Splunk has zero trust. So everybody's trying to get that zero trust, right? Competent incident response plan, security incident staff periodically exercise. So once you get hacked, a lot of times part of that post-mortem is, did you do a tabletop? Did you do like one man said? Did you do a penetration test every 18 months? Right? What did you do to help prevent this from happening? And did you do it in a timely manner? Privacy and security risk assessment long term, data backup and restoration process, hardening networks and computers, reduce and eliminate managers' technical debt. Technical debt is a lot of people have a lot of old technology, it's hard to secure. So if you upgrade to some of the newest technology, newest database, better networking, right? That technical debt is not in the way. A lot of people's doing old networking and old databases. A lot of that stuff is super hard to secure. So that's what technical debt is. Update to your incident response and poem. What things do you need to buy to fix, and the schedule when you're fixing, and the other is what do we need to buy new so this won't happen again, and we put that on the schedule fix, right? So those are some of the things. So purpose, documented after action item report. The government, we call it hot wash or post-mortem to the city council, city executive leadership pertaining to the ransomware incident against the city of Dallas. The purpose of the after action report to analyze management or response to an incident, exercise, an event, identifying strengths to maintain and built upon, as well as identifying potential areas of improvement. Right? Obviously, there's area of improvement because you got hacked, right? So that's it, right? So we know that's it. Here, I'm gonna drop the link if anybody want to come up. But once again, we just gonna keep. And two is if you got any questions while I'm rambling, or any statements, or any cybersecurity or tech questions, just drop them in the chat. We can pivot and come back. But we're gonna touch on a lot of security stuff as we go through this, right? We're gonna talk about networking, probably databases, the biggest backup, database backups. If they had on-prem versus the cloud, did they have a tunnel between them? Hopefully, we see much information on there. We're going to keep it moving. The city of Dallas is a municipal corporation of the state of Texas, third largest. Okay, this is the one that what we talked about from a state perspective. The city of Dallas is comprised of over 40 different departments, multiple offices, and server boards that support many different missions. Each department of office board effective management on its own activities. The city of Dallas operates over 860 plus computer-based applications in support of approximately 100 technologies. To that, let me think about that. Let me get my headset on while we talking. I'm like, if somebody come up, I don't have my. But two, that's the big thing. Shout out to NC Work. That's one of the big things too that happens is you have state agencies, you're dealing with a lot of agencies, you're going to have a ton of software. So how do you wrangle that stuff, right? How do you get that under control? I'm just talking about secure software development, and part of the secure software development is how on the list is, what is your inventory of software, right? So from a cybersecurity perspective, that's hard to get a handle on too, is a lot of people have these shadow IT departments where people create access databases and they're using stuff on servers in the cloud you're not aware of. People do a lot of stuff. So when you get hacked, that's one thing that's really is a hard part I think a lot of people miss. Once again, 160 plus computer-based applications, over 100 different technologies, approximately 200 information IT professionals. Right, in each department, depending on their budget, they could have something secure. They could have did a risk assessment, or they could have just winged it. And when you're at the state, you're gonna have a little bit of everything. And trying to get people on board and everybody on the same page, not an easy thing. So Royal Group, we talked about that in the article. Cyber criminals and hackers found computer-based crime to be a viable and lucrative financial and political gain. Over the past decade, in September 2022, a group known as the Royal came to the attention of law enforcement. So let's just talk about it getting together. In the year 2022, ransomware victims over 70% of the organization, making a surge compared to pending 5 years, established a higher record proportion to date. So they doing the most work. They putting in work. So early in the morning on Wednesday, May the 3rd, 2023, Royal began a ransomware attack on the city of Dallas. Using previously deployed beacons, Royal began moving through the city's network and encrypting and apparently prioritizing a list of servers using legitimate Microsoft administration tools. So shout out to my man. I appreciate that A317. I'll read that super chat in a minute. And shout out to my man. I always give shout out to Struck Security. So what is that shout out is? He calls it living off the land. He does a lot of red team and more offensive stuff. Living off the land. That wasn't some tool they created, right? They using Microsoft tools, right? Microsoft system tools, just like you using, right? Those, so that's living off the land. It's not like they're creating something. It's not like they're bringing something new in yet. They're using your own system tools against you. So how do you do that, right? How do you control that? So that's one thing we're going to talk about. It's called just-in-time security. So you as an administrator, I should know you working 3 hours. This the time of day. I can give you access to the admin tools and take them away. So if somebody hacks your account, they can't get to those tools, right? Until you give them just in time. Even if they're on the account, they wouldn't be able to use those tools, right? So that's one reason. And we'll talk about different mitigating controls. I always hear about y'all mentioning this 800-53 and 63s. Are those the top two publications to get your feet wet at GRC? How the baby doing, man? Get a shout out to the baby. How you doing, man? Can you hear me?
Oh, hello?
Hello? Can you hear me?
This thing wrong.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, how the baby doing, man? Give a shout out to the baby before we get started, man. She doing all right?
One. I don't know if you one of them is in the belly and the other one is asleep right now.
That's cool. Sleeping, that's a good thing. Let me read this super chat. I'm a NIST 800-53 if you're in a federal site. A lot of people are asking me HIPAA questions because I think a lot of people in healthcare trying to switch over. So HIPAA and high trust, I'm gonna start doing videos that. But if you're doing government, NIST 800-53 is the gold standard. And I do IRS. It sits on top of NIST 800-53. I think HIPAA now sits on that 800-53. So for me, 800-53 is the gold standard. If you're trying to get that federal life, that government life, 853 is the standard. What you want to chime in with, Struggle? What's going on?
Nothing. I'm just following along with you, man. Yeah, I'm following along with you. I haven't heard of this Royal ransomware, so I'm kind of just getting caught up, really.
No, that's cool. Chime in on the negotiation part. I was kind of, when I heard that, I wouldn't say I was shocked. I just didn't think people would negotiate on ransomware like that. I didn't know that would be a service.
It's not super common, but seeing a large proliferation of ransomware these days, a lot of organizations have been, well, at least those third party incident response investigation organizations have started to employ ransomware negotiators more. It helps to get down to ransom, right? Yeah. It happens in law enforcement with government agencies. They have, suicide negotiators. They have crisis management negotiators, and ransomware negotiators aren't too far away from either one of those. So, yeah, man.
Yeah, the other quick thing I'm having you chime in on, I think we talked about this a little bit, is I tell people script kiddies are more powerful now because You can do ransomware as a service, virus as a service, and malware as a service. So they're using those from people like this. They've written out their service. What's your thought pattern on the script kiddies getting more powerful? That's what I'm calling it.
I mean, this is a new day, man. Like, it's a just like it's not as much of a barrier of entry into cybersecurity. Right. There's not really much of a barrier of entry into the malicious underworld of cybercrime. So, those two. So, like, I think one thing that was even mentioned here was Cobalt Strike. I don't know if you know, but Cobalt Strike is a tool that anybody can buy on the internet today. It's not like a hacker tool. A lot of the tools, a lot of the techniques, and a lot of the procedures are the same ones that cybersecurity professionals use in order to verify vulnerabilities and exploit weaknesses. So I think that, man, seeing that the tools are widely available and seeing that the skill set is not even that necessary anymore. Yeah, man, people who are lower skilled can jump into the game just as quick as people who are seasoned.
Yeah, I'm quizzing you, but last thing I'm gonna keep reading.
Oh no, it's good. I know life, so I don't got no problem.
And your favorite one to chime in on, I don't know if you heard me, is living off the land. They're using the same Microsoft system tools that you're using. So you always talk about living on the land. It's not like they're using some specialized tools. They just took over your administration tools and use them kind of against you. Chime in on that.
WMI, very popular Windows network administration tool. RDP, it's built into every single Windows system. You might even think of things like PowerShell or PowerShell is huge, right? That's used for system administration all the time within the Windows environment, and it's baked into the operating system. So if a bad guy gets on there and they can look like they're doing similar, so that's one thing, right? A lot of antivirus and anti-malware tools, they're looking for those anomalies. They're looking for you dropping something like a Mimikatz or something, or some type of known malicious tool onto a machine so it can detect malicious activity. Now, if you're living off the land, if you're using all of these Windows tools that are already built into the operating system, you don't need, you'll bypass a lot of those particular detections. So network security administrators can be just as skilled as some of the most malicious hackers and the most malicious threat groups out there, because they just know how to use Windows tools to blend in.
Yeah, and the other thing is NIST made a big deal, and I just did some stuff where they have a whole insider threat, right? Yeah. Which a lot of times when those guys get on your network and they use administrative tools, it looked like an insider, right? So you can't tell them from the good guys versus the bad guys from an insider threat. So like you said, how do you control that? So a lot of times, go ahead. Yeah. What we do a lot of times is, I think you could say, this user can only use PowerShell in production because it's part of this. You got to have your groups and your users locked down. And then two, like they were talking about the logs, any privileged users, we log everything they do. So if it's out of sync or out of a time, right, your SIM, shout out to Cisco dropping, I think it was 28 billion for Splunk. And I talked about that. How do you know what the log? Are you logging the right thing? Because if you don't have the logs, it's harder for you to trace it when you're coming on site if you're not logging the right thing. So chime in on that.
So that kind of goes to, I'm about to say that kind of goes to some of those foundational cybersecurity concepts, things like separation of duties, right? Just because you're a domain administrator or a network administrator doesn't mean that you should have all the privileges to do every single thing at all times onto a machine or any machine in the environment. So, even stripping down some of those capabilities to create new accounts or to use or to, access certain shares, right? Just because there should not be somebody who's a super user that can do everything. And also PAM solutions, privileged access management tools are out there too, where even if somebody does so say for instance, a domain admin, which is typically thought of as like the keys to the kingdom. If a bad guy can escalate privileges to a domain admin in a Active Directory environment, if that domain admin's account is under a PAM system or privileged access management system or tool, then their credentials can be rotated every so often, right? So even if a bad guy does get their creds, they won't be able to use them after maybe 30 minutes or after maybe an hour or after maybe a day, right? So that cuts down in that persistence, and it makes it a bit more difficult for bad guys to accomplish their goals. So there's a lot of different little security controls that organizations can use, but it's really separation of duties, where just because you're a domain admin or a high-level privileged person doesn't mean that you should be able to do everything. So.
And that's the difference between a large and smaller company. A smaller company, a lot of times you don't have enough people to separate all the duties, right? So when you get to large companies, and both of us work for those, they have a little more separations of duties. They understand. I actually almost got in a fist fight with a CTO because he was telling me, you got to do this or that, or you can't do this from a security perspective. I was like, dude, so to be honest, and we'll talk about it, we both had to go to the CIO office and have a sit down. Come to Jesus is the term. So, man,
I've been having some of those lately too, man. It's crazy.
Go ahead. That's the difference. We'll talk about that later. That when you start to get to that level, and two, as I always tell people, I'm doing my job. So if the CIO wants to accept the risk with you doing that, that's between you and them. I could care less. But my job saying you should be separated. You can't have that. Well, I'm the CTO. I said, I don't give a shit who you are. You yell at me one more time. But that's a separate thing. That's a separate thing.
No, that's true, man. Like, just because you're a CTO or a high-level leader within an organization doesn't mean that you should have access and capabilities to do anything within a network, because you can be the weakest link.
But too is, and that's the thing. We're getting a little off topic. When people grow small companies, they used to have all that power as they grow from a startup to a company where you got federal compliance tells you have to do this. You're not running a small company by the seat of your pants. People just gave you $100,000 of software. We need to see some security, homie. So and a lot of times founders, they don't want to pass that on, right? So
that's true.
Let me read. I'm gonna read a little bit more. The city attack mitigation efforts began immediately upon detection of the Royal ransomware attack. The Royal slows the progress. The city service support, city security team began taking high priority services and service supporting servers offline. As this was done, city service restoration activities began. Through the service restorations could not begin until Royal was effectively removed from the city's network. I know service restoration teams need to begin acquiring resources for the service restoration effort for certain services. As public safety computer aided dispatch, those service restorations efforts begin immediately. That's really police, fire, and any emergency.
Man.
Early in the attack, both internal and external cybersecurity, as well as external vendor support team professionals were called upon to assist the city. That's where some of the $8.5 million they spent went to cover services. The federal law enforcement was engaged in the form of the attack. Because once again, you don't know if it's a nation's tax. So you got a police and at least DHS. Each city has a DHS, Department of Homeland Security. External cybersecurity professional expertise identify, thwart, and remove Royal's system from the network. Evidence was preserved to federal law enforcement of Royal activities for a possible future criminal prosecution effort.
That's crazy. So I think to kind of make it like a movie, right? So bad guys get in. The ransomware is starting to encrypt everything, right? So now the city is losing its capability to be able to put out alerting, right? For like you mentioned, like the fire and the police and those. So like safety, city and nation safety is being thwarted here because of this digital cyber type of attack. Man, that sounds kind of nation state-ish, right?
And I work for a large state. The thing that really confused me and not what it did is I work for a large agency. Once again, I did a tabletop with the Department of Homeland Security, Indiana, and which makes sense. He goes, well, if the state network gets hacked, you on the third list. We got to get police up, state police up, hospitals. All of that's on the state network. Fire. All of that has to be done. And two is there's two things you have to do, which I've seen it. Department of Homeland Security, I think they said it was 48 agencies. They ranked them in order who should come up first.
Right. So they're prioritizing the criticality of the systems and the services.
And that's what they said in there. Keep going, go on. But yeah,
I'm saying that's exactly what's happening, right? They're prioritizing the criticality of the services and the systems that need to come back up one by one, right? And it sounds like, I don't know if they said it, but it sounds like they said restoration, but that can come with several things, right? Because they probably have to take systems out of service. They probably have to isolate the known compromise or the known infected systems, and then they have to bring back whatever. I think you mentioned earlier, like a golden image. They have to put the golden image back with that same software that's able to to manage that same system, but they still have to keep it isolated from, because one thing about ransomware is that it spreads. Ransomware typically has wormable capabilities. So even if you do take or put a new system in place, if it's still connected to where the spread is occurring, it can reinfect those new systems. So there needs to be some type of there probably needed to be some type of segmentation and identification of what systems were infected before they started this restoration process.
Right. I think they mentioned it in the other part. There was 2 parts on it. The city's gonna wreck the agency. Then inside the agency, we had 150 services we provided. When we on DR, because of state regulations and fines we have to pay if we didn't, we only brought up like 12.
Yeah,
these are the things, because if you in DR, sometimes you can have limited computers, so you said we got to run these 12 no matter what. And
when you say DR, you mean disaster recovery, right?
Yep. Check me, good check. Okay. But the other part of that too is, and this is a lot of times and I think MGM struggle with this, is when you're on DR, you need to figure out how to run your business manually.
Yeah,
you need to have paper process, or you need to roll over to another computer, because you need to downsize and be able to run a business. Right.
That's exactly what happened. Just like you mentioned, they had paper processes. Yeah. They had to hire additional temporary. They probably had to hire some additional temporary security staff in order, because they said they were literally escorting people to their rooms and opening and closing the doors. So you need to have some disaster recovery, business continuity plans in order to keep operating, even though you're in a disaster scenario. So yeah, man.
So that's called BI, right? Business impact analysis. So what are you going to be, and when you're in DR and COOP, what do you need to run specifically to run your business? I did some work on Upworks, and kind of like Fiverr is. I did a disaster recovery for a candy maker in Chicago.
Okay.
I said, why do you need disaster recovery? He goes, we got $5 million from a bank, so they want to know if the plant is on fire, how are they going to get their money paid back? So we had to do it. So incident plan. So I thought that was one of the novel things I done. I made about $5,000, but when you get money from the bank, they want to know how you going to continue business in a disaster, especially now, because it seems like somebody getting hacked every day.
Every day.
So how do you
like so coming from more like that industrial environment, like I told you before, I used to work at a nuclear plant. Right. A lot of engineering is way ahead of that as it concerns cyber, as it concerns backup plans, redundancy of systems, diversity of systems, like business or like disaster recovery. It's just baked in as it concerns. You call it like engineering impacted systems or something, where it's like these systems must remain running in order for things to stay safe. Because when we were at the plant, it's like, if this go down, and this go down, this is the risk of life. Right. These are the number of people who might pass as a result of this, right? So a lot of that has already been built into that risk, like they mentioned, the risk analysis has already been built into a lot of like the engineering plans. I think cyber, especially a lot of industries like finances or industries like hospitality, they're kind of catching up with that. Just want to throw that in there.
I think hospitals are really slow, because I've been getting hit a lot. They seem to be really struggling. Yeah. DP Scribe, they're a DR plan, but do they test? NIST says you have to test your DR plan every 18 months. So that's one reason I do like the Fed. And I when I do go to smaller companies, I still do NIST practices. NIST says you got to practice every 18 months. And 2 is I do IRS work. The IRS used to come on site every 3 years, and they look for when did you test it, what's the date on it. They want to see your plan, right? And sometimes they come in and walk through your plan with you, because when you do your plan, you gotta type it up, you gotta write it up. With teams now, I just tell everybody we're gonna record it. I'm not typing it. We just gonna record the exercise in there. Then things we typed up as lessons learned. So DB Scribe, that you're supposed to do that. Go ahead, Gabe. Go ahead.
Now, I'm about to say, and probably one of the most common ways that it's tested is with these tabletop exercises, like you were mentioning, right? You bring in all of the stakeholders, people who will be the responders, people who are on site, executives, leadership within organizations, and you have a tabletop exercise, and you run through scenarios that your organization might go through that might cause you like that might be an incident, and then you test and evaluate the way that they respond. Typically, organizations like my firm will write up recommendations about communication, about technical capabilities, about all these things, and then that's kind of like a way that you test your plan. But you can also test it in ways like I think somebody mentioned earlier was like penetration testing, or what you also see is red or purple teaming, right? Because that's where you're kind of going step by step with red teamers and seeing how your blue team is responding. So, what
we did is, which was kind of cool, is, and I'm trying to incorporate that to the company I work for. When we do big software updates, meaning we're gonna shut down a system on our SLA Sunday, from like 10 to 6, even in the cloud, like once a quarter we do that. When we're gonna put in a new release where we shut stuff down. Once we get the new system up, we pull a database to see if it's going to fail over the DR to test it. And one of the things that usually comes up is, the DNS fell over, or our DNS was going to Google. It's like, Google says you got 24 hours for your DNS react. Like, oh shit, well, how this going to work in real life, right? So when you pull the plug, so that's when you really test it. So one thing we figured out is when you do DNS, a lot of times is for your first initial, you getting it out. In the properties file, you put the IP address so it doesn't have to go through the DNS, right? DNS does the name, right? So you put the IP address so it goes right. IP address when you first spin it up, right, to start testing stuff. But when you do real DR tests, those are the stuff you figure out. So, let me read this next paragraph. Obligated, that's what we're talking about. As obligated under state law, the city of Dallas provide notice to the state of Texas Office of the Attorney General. The city reported to the Attorney General that persons of 26,000 Texas residents, a total of 30,000 individuals, were potentially exposed due to the attack. The city referenced the city notice was first published in the Attorney General's website August 7, 2023. The OAG's website indicated personal information such as name, address, social security number, health information, health insurance, required under federal law using different metrics of inclusions of individuals. The Department of Health and Human Services were notified. Health and Hospital has a wall of shame. So when you get hacked for HIPAA, you're going to be out there forever. Was notified as a sensitive personal information. And the PHI protected health information of 30,000 people were potentially exposed by the rural. The breach submission date was recorded as August 3rd, 2023. So when you hit a state like that, you hit multiple agencies. So HIPAA got hit. So that's probably was obviously their health organizations. With the hospital. I'm sure their IRS, probably child welfare services. So when you hit that at a state, they all share the same network and resources. So that's why you got to start notifying. And the big deal that start happening, I'm talking about that in my channel, is each state of general attorney. Now, each state, they got their own breach notifications. Like Cali's following GDPR, they want to know 25. I think New York was 48 hours. So you got to know each state notification. Or kind of what big firms do is we know 24 hours the lowest. So we just let everybody know at 24. So we don't have to figure out each individual. What's your thoughts on that, Gabe?
Yeah, I was going to say also the business, some more of the business impact might be fines by different government agencies. So that's like, right, you might be chomping into your budget. People might be getting their heads cut off, right? People might be getting fired as a result of this if they find some level of negligence. So it's like it's a lot of like downstream effects of what happens with these incidents. When you start looking on LinkedIn or your job posting boards, and you start seeing organizations hiring for roles, that means somebody got their head chopped off and they're looking to refresh the resources to be able to deal with these type of things. And that's why we stay employed. That's one reason why we stay employed.
And people don't know, and a lot of people know this. Once again, I do IRS. South Carolina got hacked. Their Department of Revenue got hacked for the IRS. Every Department of Revenue around the whole nation, they like quadruple their security team. So they got everybody hired. So a lot of times if you see a certain agency gets hacked or a certain type of company, man, people just start quadrupling their budget because they're trying to figure out what's going on, or they don't want to be on the news and figure out what's next. So that's
Target. Like Target probably has one of the best cybersecurity programs in the world right now. Like they are, but that happened as a result of that large Target hack years and years and years ago. What was it? 2000? What? It was like the early 2010s or something like that.
Well, that's what I think. Tech Shine said apply to MGM now. Now wait a little bit. They got a little work to do.
I was about to say, let me see if they got some posters.
I think a lot of what I think is going to happen, especially with Caesars and MGM, I think that whole casino about to tighten up. They about to get their stuff tighten up, man. I think that whole industry, like, because when you can't get people in their rooms, and I think I might do a video. I think they're we're going to talk about their 8.5. I think they end up losing or something, $80 million. It was a crazy amount in like 2 or 3 weeks, which we know casinos do big work. So I'm gonna keep.
Man, I'm seeing.
Go ahead.
Seeing posts, man. I'm seeing posts. I saw something for senior manager for risk and policy, senior manager information security.
For MGM or just in general?
Let's see. Is it Bet MGM? Is that?
No, I think it's MGM is their main, and they own like 4 or 5 other casinos underneath them.
Is it BET MGM? Is that the name of it?
That might be one of their divisions, though.
Because I see that they have postings from a week ago, and these are cybersecurity and IT infrastructure folks. So this might be, this might be them. That's them. Let me read this quick paragraph real quick.
Sure. Dallas City approved the budget 8.5. So computer-based interdiction, mitigation, recovery, restorations were efforts directly by the Royal Ransomware. The sum includes external cybersecurity professionals. Shout out to Gabe. We got to get the consultants paid. So some of the 8.5 went to the consultants. Identity theft and fraud. We know we got to give everybody credit monitoring, protection services, offering breach notification to business partners, individuals that experience state exposure. External cybersecurity professionals provide city assistance that complemented the service of the city external legal service team that provided by federal and state law enforcement. The external cybersecurity professionals provide an alternative experience view to Royal, their activities and relevant remediations approach to reduce or remove damage by Royal. These efforts are largely completed, but an estimated final cost is provided. So the 2 big things is shout out to Gabe was external, and people don't realize external legal services because people gonna sue them. So you gotta get the law team in there. Yeah. What's your take on that? I'll let you comment on those 2 paragraphs.
No, like so that's the thing. In all of these incidents, there's always legal that's involved in the process. I mean, it whether it's business to business type of information or whatever conversations, because cybersecurity and tech professionals aren't legal advisors, right? So if you're talking about communications that go to the public, that needs to be reviewed by legal. If you're talking about contracts with third-party organizations that are coming in and helping you, that needs legal looks, legal eyes on it. So all of this is definitely has legal implications to it.
Are you? That's one thing I was surprised, and I'm a little older than you, because I'm not as high as you, but I'm in all the meetings. Legal's always in all those meetings, and I'm surprised. And now you're dealing with state general attorneys that's trying to find you for each individual states. So they read those state laws from each individual of your customers to figure out what is our liability from a legal perspective for that happening. So I'm really surprised that I'm usually with legal every other day, which really surprises me. I never thought starting off as a programmer that I just talked to legal, and I think probably tomorrow the day, but I'm doing a video on CCPA because we're dealing with data privacy so much with GDPR, CCPA, DMV kind of got their own data privacy in New York. There's such big states that just taking data privacy to a whole nother level where I know companies like, yeah, we ain't gonna even do business with them anymore because the risk and the liability is just too crazy for that. So
I definitely see what you mean.
I'm gonna keep rolling. The breach notification service provided breach notifications to current related prior to city personnel as documented dependent with such information. The breach notification letters offer a complimentary 2-year memberships in a identity protection program to deter theft and fraud. The cost of the first round notification 2023. Additional cost for this activity will be incurred as second round of notifications. To date, the city has dedicated, 40,000 hours toward the comprehensive remediation effort of this ITC method documented. They got 41,000 hours collectively. Collaboratively with the city received support from external partners, contractors who contributed additional 16,000. 1,600 hours. So shit, what is that? 80,000 hours to these companies various.
So if you do 40 hours a week divided by
dispatch, desk, top user fire, substantial, meticulous reconfiguration of compromised devices, thorough reconstruction of technology infrastructure, and ongoing vigilant outside of city technology environments defined by the city's comprehensive security landscape. And that's what you were talking about. If you don't get it all, it's gonna come back. What's your thoughts on those hours? Let me roll those hours back up.
I just look at that 1671 hours is about 70 days of work, like 70 work days. So if you're talking about
what's 40,000 though? I mean, so that lets you know they had, and two is like our city, they had the city's IT working, the state IT working, and a lot of times the big individual agencies have their own security teams. So you probably easily had 400 people working 60 hours a week trying to figure out what's going on. Then how many consultants you think on deck for something? 200? 10?
And that's the thing, right? These are some of the business implications here. It's not only paying the ransom, it's not only buying new systems and hardware and software, but it's also the man hours put into what you need. Like, you got to stop everything. And also you need to account for the hours that you lose from productivity of those systems. So there's a large financial implication to ransomware and other type of cybersecurity attacks.
I was at a high level customer, and I never forgot this. It stuck with me. The C-suite goes, if we have to shut down the operations for everybody, we're gonna furlough people and not pay them. Yeah, I'm like, what? So people are making those decisions for you behind the scenes that you never thought of. So you working, you think you're gonna get paid. They can furlough you and you not get paid till they get the system up and maybe hire new people. Go ahead. So
a chief financial officer, a CFO of an organization, has a lot more to consider than just we don't pay ransoms. What are you losing? What are you losing by not paying the ransom? Are you losing people? Because if you furloughing people, some people gonna walk, and maybe some of your best people might walk. Are you losing people who are able to manage those particular systems? Your downtime? Are you losing even more money by paying these high-priced consultants? I mean, I know that, man. I know for some organizations it can be $300, $400 for one hour per hour. For a particular consultant to address a cybersecurity incident. If you don't have a retainer, it's probably even more without a retainer.
And we know the big guys, the big consulting companies, practice manager's gonna be on site. He's gonna be $500 an hour, man. He just telling people what to do, man. So it's easily. So them numbers can easily get. Well, the big thing too is reputational risk. Yeah. Right. If you're a bank or something, you get cybersecurity, you get hacked. I might take out my money out. I might not mess with you. You're supposed to be a fintech or crypto. You get hacked. Somebody stole a couple $100 million in crypto coins. I almost called you up, Gabe. We in the wrong side of this business, man. We get crypto.
I'm telling you. But so overall, man, it's just it's a lot of money involved. That at times the money involved in addressing an incident, it can be more, and in many cases, it's more than what you would pay if you just paid the ransom. I'm not saying that that's the only argument. The financial implications aren't the only argument for paying the ransom or not paying the ransom, but it is a variable. that organizations need to consider?
I'll tell you who's more expensive than the consultants that really surprised me is
Who's
when
that?
you start the data privacy lawyers, when they come in and start talking, reading them guys were going for like $800 an hour, man. I'm like, that shit's crazy, man. So you talk, no, Calvin, you're right. People are replaceable. Said about everyone in a position of power. Yeah, man. If you're a little guy, people don't give a shit about you, Calvin. I agree with that.
It depends on that. It depends on that little guy's role, man. Like if that little guy has been the head of your department for 15 years, and just because you had an incident, you lose. You might lose. I've seen some little guys, quote unquote, that have been able to renegotiate their compensation just because they were threatening to leave.
No, I agree. I don't call those little guys, but you're right. Sometimes you think they're little, then you like, well, shit, this dude, he leaving a lot of OJT, a lot of informational knowledge, a lot of organizational that nobody ever knew he had until you go down, right? Then you got to start doing stuff by paper. You're like, well, shit, he the only one know how to do it.
And I'm telling you, man, like I think that, and you probably even know this, right? As you're doing these tabletop exercises, people are like, yeah, we would do this, and that, and this step, and that other step. And then the major question that I know that we always ask is any of this formalized? Is any of this documented?
No,
because if that person who's answering all the question leaves,
it's not.
all of that native, all of that company cultural information leaves with them.
No, that's true. And that's one thing a lot of times, I'm glad you brought that up. That's why you do tabletops. Now, everybody, what's tabletop?
Right.
A lot of times it brings out the documentation you don't have that you need to get. It's like, okay, who knows how to do that? Or the things people, what's that term is, when somebody dies, they take over. What's that called? You know what it is on the tip of your tongue. I can't even.
I know what you're talking about.
Well, so if the plane crashed without executives, who's gonna come and do their work, right? So they actually walk through that. Because I was at DOD when 9/11. So if we get hit by the plane, how are we gonna print these checks, right? So you got to walk through that for who's got that corporate knowledge and who can back those up. And if not, we need to start documenting. The cool thing now, though, is a lot of times now is when you document it, you can put in automation. So it's internal. But if it's not documented, you can't automate it, right? So I think that's what us too.
Document it and formalize too, right? Because people could put notes. They're like, I got my notes on my computer. It's down somewhere. Like, all right, is it formalized? Is there a policy? Is there a standard? Is it something that other people can see other than you on your machine? All right, let's get to it.
One of the simple things is people take for granted is if you get hit or your phone gets done, nobody memorizes numbers anymore.
Nothing.
They used to hit their phone, so we want to get them just basic telephone numbers inside everybody's briefcase. So if something happens, you at least have numbers that you can call if something's wrong with your phone. A lot of people just take that for granted. And I'm bad. So somebody brought that up. I'm like, oh, how would we do that? So, like you said, you got to formalize and get it down. Let me read this real quick. A note. Sure. The city current approved budget, we once again for that is set not to exceed 8.5. As he said, Dallas City Council was supportive and understanding providing initial budget as they understood the attack response, ongoing, extended significantly past. So if the hackers wanted $2 million and you spent $8 million, you could have saved $6 million. City leadership is managing costs of both internal and external resources to ensure Royal is removed from city computers and networking. Presently, the cost estimates are aligning with the initial budget approved. Right, that's a budget is a fancy word as a guess, right? So they did it. The final cost has not been completed at the time. The final forensic cost examination will be provided at a later date. Right, so you want to chime in there? The other thing is I work for a big agency, and what did we say? We had 300 million lines of tax payers. So if you take 300 times $100, you at $3 billion, man. So we were like, so a lot of people is cyber insurance. So how much in cyber insurance do you need to cover that, right? What is the pluses and minuses? Do you have that, or do you need cyber insurance to cover that?
Yeah.
So that's where the cyber insurance is becoming. It's picking up steam, and it seems like every big company's trying to get cyber security.
Yeah.
Let's see what. I'm down at Fort Worth. All the local schools been talking about Dallas and deal out facts. Yeah, I'm old man. Briefcase. Shout out to the
Nothing wrong with
briefcase club. Let's see. Let's get into it now. Royal incident. The section documents the Royal incident. I think we're gonna cruise to this. Third actor behind the Royal ransom appeared in January. This is just the backing of it. Escalated attack focused on top tier corporations. The ransomware reportedly ranged from 250 to 2 million. That's a lot cheaper than 8.5.
Yeah, so they probably, I'm telling you, they probably set those numbers to stay under the rate. Well, to some degree to stay under the radar, because that's not very, very high.
It's not. But I guess my thing, you think they're attacking mid-sized companies, so they're not trying to get the 100 million because they're not trying to get the big dogs because they got more cybersecurity.
Well, it's also more of those mid-sized, small to mid-sized organizations that can actually pay those 250K to 2 million. Like that's not high for a lot of what these ransoms are. Today. So
your cyber insurance should be able to cover that. The Royal generally attempts to do a bat loader. Obviously, they're on Windows infection. Threat actors usually spread through the search engine poisoning. The infection moves. There's your Cobalt Strike beacon as a precursor to the ransomware. Royal ransomware made the rounds in research circles and social media in September 2022. Early campaign, Royal deployed Batcats, another group encryptor. They later switched to their own after branding Xeon the Royal. They began using the later as ransomware notes generator. The malware also
known as... I'm trying to see how they got in.
Yeah, we getting there. I think malware known as malicious software, malicious code referred to the programs that covertly inserted in another program with the intent to destroy data and run destructive, intrusive programs, otherwise compromise confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the victim's data applications. Malware is one of the most common internal threats to most hosts, causing widespread damage, disruption, and necessity extensive recovery efforts within an organization. Shout out to NIST 883R1. I need to look that one up. Go ahead on that, Gabe.
No, nothing to say about it. That's just the definition of malware. It sounds like it's just coming from one of their guidance things.
Yeah, facts. Let's see.
And that's why sometimes I look at these reports. I'm like, where the meat at? Because
I'm hoping we get to it. It's a lot of fluff.
Yeah.
A lot of times they don't show the meat, right? That's for the back end office. Let's see. So
they give a definition of EDR.
Yeah, report, CrowdStrike, Sex Solution. EDR tools offer advanced detection investigation. So yeah.
But if they're saying that they're living off the land, the endpoint detection and response tool,
I ain't gonna catch it.
Yeah, it probably didn't catch it, right? If it was able to propagate like that. But I don't know. I don't know the detection method.
We got that later. We got it. We got a little bit. Early City of Dallas directly challenged an unknown threat party aggressor who had infiltrated city production computer communication environment. The aggressor self-identified in the text file, corroborated by federal authorities as the Royal used organization information they gathered through previous surveillance to launch ransomware attack against the city personnel, various residents.
Real quick. It say on May. It pretty much says on May 3rd. They got the ransom note that popped up. That's all it said. All it said. They said a whole bunch of without saying a lot. So May 3rd. Okay. They got the ransom note on somebody's computer. Got it.
Okay. Between 7th and 3rd, Royal initiated cyber operations against the city. Initial entry point was established through the utilization of a service account, which connected to a server. Leveraging this initial access, the threat actor cleverly navigated the internal infrastructure of the city by exploiting legitimate third-party remote management utilities. Ransomware
it didn't say nothing there. It said the initial entry point was established. What was the initial entry point?
They ain't gonna tell you.
So it got a service account that was connected to a server. What server was this? A domain controller, email server? Like what would?
We getting there. Hold on, we gonna get there. I bet you didn't say that. Like deployment constructed with a typically known beacon, use remote management tool, legitimate pen testing technologies to traverse the city's internal network. The action provided staging for the Royal to exfiltrate the 1.6. In addition, the Data Exfiltration Act, the threat actor's credential harvesting technique, provides a list of users, accounts, and devices. You got anything out of that?
Nope, nothing.
We're gonna keep going. 2:04 a.m. The threat actor deployed ransomware onto the system within Dallas environment. The process of malware execution 5 a.m. marked the first final observable instance of the ransomware file. Subsequent to this occurrence, no further indication of threat actors have been identified.
Yeah, that was just a high-level way of saying it got onto a server by using a service account and was able to spread from there. And we detected it on May 3rd. But we also saw that after it got detected, they probably did some forensics, found out that it actually started off in April.
Facts.
So that's all I'm seeing here.
Let's see what
at least that's what I'm saying. But yeah, go ahead.
Let's see what the plan got. You good? You good? ITS reviewed and enacted the incident response plan, enabling the instant response process from ransomware event. This process includes communication directed to the mayor, council, city manager. The plan provides detailed steps on detecting, eradicating, blah, blah, like you said. The thing about the incident response plan, and I always ask people, is what level of intrusion causes your incident response plan to be activated? The two is, what's your initial incident response plan team, right? You got engineers in there. Usually you got a business owner in there. Usually the chief security information is in there, but what level do you ping the CIO? And, if you lose enough like this, you contacting the mayor or the president of the company. What level causes you to make that call and wake the CEO up of a, this is at least a state agency. That's probably the government. But when do you call Elon Musk? Go ahead and chime in on that.
Now, that's typically what we do. Like, we start up what you call like a bridge, right?
Yeah.
It's a place where like your CSIRT or your cybersecurity incident response team can meet. That bridge just stays open. That could be anywhere, like a Teams chat, a Zoom chat, WebEx or whatever. It just stays open. You start to develop a frequency of time when you will have meetings and check-ins. And then, there can be one for the technical team who's actually addressing it, and also one for there's also one for executives or leadership, where there's particular reports about what's happening for the incident as investigation continues. But yeah,
that's funny. You mentioned do you see it? They got it on there right there.
I see it here. That's what I was saying. Like, they found the note. See, there's a bridge, right? Bridge called open.
Bridge called open. So, but they did an excellent documentation, like sanitation of the servers identified. Like you said, they're not really giving you what they sent. They're just like high level, which I knew they were going to do that. Disaster recovery manager, a few big organs, citywide announcement, right? Executive leadership, CIO and CIFO. They let them get coffee before they wake them up.
wait, all this was done in one day between 2 a.m.
Oh, that's when it gets hot, man. When you fired it, you calling everybody.
Yeah, I guess so.
That suck. I've been there, man. When you up at 5 a.m. trying to figure out what's going on, people panicking.
See, that's why I like larger organizations, because you have 24-hour coverage, but that coverage spans the world. So it might be one group. It might be one group who's in the U.S., but another group that's in Europe, another group that's in APAC. So y'all keep switching over, but keep meticulous notes as you go along.
Yeah, the weird thing though is a lot of times NIST just wants you to be in CONUS, so you can't chase the sun in CONUS. So that's they talk about that. Okay, it's cool without being United States, but we need Ireland, man. We ain't trying to be up all night. We need Ireland to step in, man. Can we let Ireland be part of CONUS, man? So we ain't trying to be up. And I've been up 25 hours straight, man. I'm like, PBO too old for that shit now. But and two is, my boss used to do this. It looks like a police report. His shit used to be, because he used to work in ex-NSA. My stuff was decent. He ain't like it. He wrote his stuff look exactly like this, man.
Yeah.
President's agency. So, we're just going to read me text. That's probably the ransomware. Rebuild. Okay, they got the CAD system. So
that's why I'm like, dang.
So he did multiple domains impacted, 173 servers. Hopefully they're in the cloud, so you can just automatically rebuild it. Hopefully use a Puppet and Chef or something. Automation. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I'm
about to say, this seems a lot in a very small period of time.
It is, but with it being a state, they probably got multiple agencies working on stuff.
Okay.
That's how we would do it. Like, so I think this is more than one agency. Because remember, it was HIPAA, a couple other agencies. So this looks like multiple agencies. Ours would call IoT. So the agency would report back because they're the information technology for the whole state. So, but each one of the agencies got to fix their own servers, right?
Yeah.
Because your incident response plan is going to be different for each agency and the level of maturity your agency is. Some people are manually hand jamming, other people spinning up cloud servers. So I think that's why that's look like that. Go ahead.
I don't know, because it's like you got to evaluate the spread of the infection before you start to rebuild. It seems like some of this is happening simultaneously or very close to one. Like,
I don't know if you listen upside, they were talking about when they identified it for a division or agency, they would tell an agency, then they would do their reconstitution plan at the top. That's what they were talking about. So I think that's why it looks
like the incident. I don't know if you see, it says the incident analysis determined 173 servers are impacted. That's at 2:15. But earlier they were disconnecting things. They were rebuilding some things that let's see.
I think those were different. I'm just guessing. It looked like those are different agencies. But
no, no worries. I'm just having a cursory view of it. But
that makes perfect. So let's talk about the recovery efforts in this section. Operation teams initiated restorative action promptly after acknowledgement occurred that the malware affecting the technology framework, crucial to operation vitality, essential for residents. They encompass pivotal constituents such as technology infrastructure. That's where there's computer-aided dispatch. That's the police.
Oh, I thought it was computer-aided drafting.
Yeah, I was thinking AutoCAD.
Yeah, same. I was thinking AutoCAD too.
Yeah, dispatch. So that's the police. Once we talked about that, first responders are the first one that's gonna come up.
That's the dispatch. That's the dispatch system that was taken out. Damn.
Yep. So you would, and I've talked to another city. I think it was Dallas. They were actually making police calls and writing down reports by hand and figure out how to do stuff. They were doing stuff by walkie-talkie on theirs because you got to figure out how to keep going when the city gets attacked. This is the support team was activated to provide a responding team with information pertinent to the recovery and restoration. The IT teams expeditionally initiated 24/7 hour clock rotating schedule was the effort to mitigate.
There we go.
There it is. However, these endeavors necessitated a temporary pause due to the incomplete neutralization of malicious executable like you said.
See what I'm saying, PBO? Yeah. Because they was doing stuff, but it looked like some systems were not neutral, like it was incomplete.
It was,
but they were restoring systems, and it was incomplete. So it looked like it was something happened. They had to stop.
Yeah, they had to
pause. See, there we go.
You were right.
Boom, right? I'm saying, like, yo, like they move a little fast here.
They did. Security
so they were getting some reinfections. Like I said before, ransomware reinfects. It spreads. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. You caught the included implementing security protocols aimed at eliminating remote management technology and introducing security policies to prevent reinfection, like you just said.
I'm telling you, I'm telling you, I've been in these things, and that's one of the biggest concerns is reinfection of systems that you've restored. But you have to do an analysis. You have to do a complete assessment of your environment before you start saying, like, okay, I'm about to just bring this thing back up. You will get reinfected if you're not careful.
But working for a state and a large state agencies, the mayor's getting pressure on him. The governor's getting pressure on him. So they put pressure on you. You think you got to go ahead and start, right? Because
it's nothing but that whole situation is pressure. That's why they bring in the professionals, because they dealing with them. We done it. Hey, chill. Right, but like That's kind of the message.
And the other thing too, especially from the state I've been in there, is if you can't collect taxes, you can't do services. You will say you lost control of your state agency. You will not get reelected.
Yeah.
So I had people come visit us. They're like, "Where you at? What you doing?" Because the governor wants to seem in control. He wants to get on the news. And you see some of those other type of states. There are people getting on the news talking about giving statuses of that. So don't believe there's not political pressure trying to get this figured out and handled, man.
% true. And that's why you need those people in there who maybe can communicate. Like, how we talked about before, like having those soft skills to be able to communicate the situation to certain parties. So somebody who's able to speak, leadership, political talk, right? To kind of explain what's going on, what the impacts would be if we took this course of action, and why we need to completely assess the environment before taking action. Because it could take more time in order to restore systems. It can take more money in order to restore services if it's not done correctly and in order. So,
and that's why the practice managers get paid that money, man. Because I've been in rooms and I've seen, because I worked at XDOD, they cussing them guys out, man, because they ex-military, man. They pressure. So that $500, they're gonna earn every bit of it, man. So,
man, PBO, I was part of an incident where a PLC or programmable logic controller, like a device that's able to, move things in the real world physically, right?
Yeah.
It was a PLC for a bridge in the state of New Jersey that had got infected. We were dealing with that incident. And when you talk about high pressure, you're talking about, hey, if this bridge goes up while there's cars on them, people can die, right? You can't just rush it. You can't rush the process, but at the same time, you have to be cognizant of the implications of this infection to that environment. So they had to call the big guys in because they was, it was still malware there.
And that's one reason I always overreact because I'm old. Is I stay out of the red team, because if you say it's handled and for some reason you miss something and it comes back and reinfected,
man,
we call it CIP. We getting all that shit for free.
Let me tell you, PBO, I still, like, for my first red team or my first internal pen test, man, I feel like, man, I was using Cobalt Strike. I had put some beacons on some machines that I compromised. And I swear, I know I forgot to take the beacons off, man. Them mugs probably still on the system to this day. To this day. And hey, you just gotta, you live and you learn. You live and you learn. But yeah, them mugs still, I know them mugs still there. They probably still haven't even found that malware, but it's not gonna do nothing to their systems. It's just like stuff trying to reach out to infrastructure that I built. So it's not gonna do anything. But at the same time, I mean, you gotta be careful.
You do. Yeah, shout out to A317. But yeah, it's stucknet type stuff. When you talk about ransomware, how it gets in. But two, we talk about script kiddies are more powerful than ever because they have access to some of the top malware and stuff that they're written out. So, but two is, and we're gonna get in there too, is how do you set up your infrastructure, hopefully to detect this so this wasn't happening to you. Zero trust, even if they get on there, if it's low level, they won't be able to escalate or go laterally, right? So I'm hopefully they're gonna get into some of that as we walk through this. Let me read these next couple.
Man, look at that next paragraph, but go ahead.
After confirming the efficacy of these measures to assessments against the existing IT security, technology, and visibility, the restoration endeavors focus on reinitiating mission-critical essential infrastructure necessary for the application support. The restorative task was organized in a distinctive work stream, each assigned to a specialized team dedicated to recovery initiative. The 24/7 approach allowed for targeted allocation of resource based on specific requirements. Remember, I think they had 300 applications.
Something like that.
Yeah, the team was structured in segment, compromised server system recovery, asset retrieval, adhere to DoD 5220.22M standards for complete device purging to eliminate malware and subsequent re-imaging of affected systems. Go ahead and chime in on that.
That's so boom, right? That I pulled out of that. They had to redo it because they didn't do it right the first time. It caused reinfections, and they and in that last sentence, the teams were structured into segments comprising servers, system recovery, asset retrieval, adherence to those standards. So they were probably segmenting different, not only teams, but segmenting different systems, like through servers and systems. Like they reapproached the cleanup process. Pretty much is what I just saw here.
Through a collaborative, cooperating effort involving the city and external vendors, essential functionality was restored. The systems included computer-aided dispatch, that's police, which regained basic functionality through a manual dispatch process, city websites, and deployment of service permitting systems. The restoration was achieved by the conclusion of May 8th, following the initial phase of recovery on May 11th. The CAD dispatch system transitioned back to full automation for dispatch operations. Additional regular services such as water billing to residents, regional wants and warrants processing. We got to go get the bad guys, and utilization of the city service critical to city payment and financial processing resume operation. So a lot of city pays stuff with credit cards. There's usually one services. So if you can't get bond, you can't pay bills, you can't get permits, a ticket, so all of that right there. Let me read this last one real quick. Final analysis was ascertained that the events led to an impairment of over 230 servers, necessitating comprehensive endeavor for the complete restoration and recovery through available backups. Among these affected systems, the city successfully retired more than 100 surplus servers hosting outdated applications. So a lot of times when you do it, you're like, we got to upgrade some of this stuff because it's too old. Unsupported operating system or deemed non-essential for crucial municipality service culminated to a count of 1,400 endpoint devices with thorough reconstructed directly due to the effects of ransomware infection. Wow. Go ahead and chime in on that.
So I think one thing that kind of stuck out to me was that it says it was ascertained that the event led to impairment of 230 servers, necessitating conferences. Okay, recovering through available backups. That means that there were some backups, and I bet a lot of the backups that were not available. So that resulted in them upgrading and replacing certain servers and endpoints, like it mentions there. Like it says, the cumulative count of, like you said, 1,398 endpoint devices went through reconstruction. That means that they have to bring in new operating systems or backup operating systems. They have to configure them to the hardening standards that are necessary to run in the environment. They have to put the correct software there, right, for those different services and things that run on the city. So they didn't have some backups, and they had to rebuild as a result. And that's one of the major remediations for ransomware is that you have to replace it. You have to replace it with a backup.
And the thing we were talking about originally, that's where all those hours came from up at top. I'm like, where you getting all these? But like you said, and two is when you're doing disaster recovery, it's what RTO, return to service, and RPO, point of return from how much data you can lose from a database. And a lot of times and we took us a while at DOD, is people didn't put down their backups until they had to. I worked at a small company. The head of the backup device was cracked. So we thought we was testing it. When we put it down, it wasn't lining them up, right? So you got to put them down and test those backups. That's one part of your DR, which every year you need to put down them backups and make sure you can read them.
Yeah.
Right. And two is
look at all those services. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, we're about to go through there. And two is, once again, RTO and RPO, you got to test how long do you need to take to get that service up or down, and how much data can you lose, right? Sometimes it can be a week, and sometimes we can't lose more than 2 or 3 hours, right? So that's going to tell you what database you can and what's your backup service and how are you going to be doing those backups.
Right.
Let's look at all these services, right? It's a ton of them, right? So, and two is, we talked about that too, is this is ranking their service, and I believe the order how they brought it up. They might order them, but inside your organization, you need to be able to rank which one of these services and when you need them come up, what's most valuable. I worked on big agencies. When they went to DR, they only gonna run like these 13 services, right? Right. So let's just hit these at a high level. It's a ton of that. GIS, Fusion, that's the police, report, that's a lot. Public safety.
Animal management system.
Where you at? Oh yeah, wow.
I'm just kind of talking through.
Permits, it's everything. Secure file transfer. For us, that one was tricky. Why is that tricky? It's just an SFTP server. It's small. That's it. But for us, we moved 10,000 files. There were pay files, all kind of files on this server. So if that files wasn't up, wasn't nothing getting moved, right? So we was like,
Man,
oh, we need to move that from number 30 to number 2, right? Because
yeah.
with that, you couldn't move files around. And as a government agency, that's all you do is move files around. So,
You know what this is also telling me? The number of these services in the different departments and the different groups. You know what this is telling me about their network architecture? Is that it's probably a flat network. It's probably an absolute flat network, which means that there is almost no segmentation in their environment between system. So they probably want because look, you got Dallas Water, you got the animal systems, you got the courts, and you got everything in there. Every once you get into the network, it probably can access. You can probably access everything, all of those different departments.
No, you're right, and that's why. And we talked about that. That's why the ransomware easily move laterally. Shout out to Savage for giving us a shout out. I love how y'all going into details.
Yeah.
Shout out. But for our channels, we about that life, man. We do this for real. we don't.
I was gonna say I saw one of those services was warrants. It said warrants, so the police can't access the people that they gotta go arrest. So hey,
there it is. 515 Dallas crime system down. Records came back up. So now you're right. It's a flat network. So the first thing they need to be doing is segmenting their network and
the network.
And if you need to get to some shared resources, y'all need to have a hold to that resource on the flat. They can't reach into the agency or whatever that is. So, but now you're right. It's super. Let's see. It does seem super flat. Fire rescue was down. Everything was down, man. That's why the mayor's putting that pressure on them. That's why they start coming back up too soon. Shout out to my network guy in there, 317. We need some network segmentation. Shout out to Cisco. They need to get Cisco on there with Splunk. Let's read the operational risk. This section is to document internal and external risk. City under constant cybersecurity. City of Dallas rejects millions of questionable inbound network connection requests. These requests are for a variety of reasons. Many have legitimate reason, with most generally considered to be malicious in nature. The city is a large municipality and may be considered a large target for cyber criminals because most municipalities fail to adequately secure their network resources. The additional city manager operates and maintains several critical infrastructure targets that are appealing to cyber criminals. Potable water, storm water management, flood water management, airport, aviation. Like you said, it seems like it's a flat network. The city of Dallas,
very flat network.
The city of Dallas attempt to manage access to the network, server routers, load balancers using the latest generation of firewall. Physical firewall devices applications are deployed and managed and operated at the Dallas City Hall. The city uses core firewalls for enterprise network operations for security purposes. Perimeter firewalls are managed and operated to support public internet access. Despite the use of the latest technology, city is subject to 24/7 intrusion attempts, requiring the city to use a multitude of security technologies, both hardware and software based, to ensure only authorized. They didn't talk about segmentation. They look like they just said the physical. Yeah. Go ahead. That sounds like
no. I'm about to say all they said is that we having a hard time here, and this is what we doing. But at the same time, we still don't know how they got in. I bet it was a social engineering attack.
I think they said
it was like a phishing.
I think I read that somewhere when I read my other one. I think it said it was phishing. We got a little more while to go. We're gonna be here for a while.
I got probably 10 more minutes. I'm about to go to sheep.
No, that's fine. I understand. I hold it down, but I need to speed up. I'm a 17 out of 31.
You good.
Let's see what my keep rocking. Flat network is KISS, but also KISS is the forest BPM, man.
Yeah.
So it did seem like a flat network, man. Let's see.
Yeah.
Hey, that was a good time to be criminal in Dallas.
Yep. When the warrants, when that warrant system down, the police like, I don't even know who to arrest. They like, not me.
They probably went on paper, man. I don't know, like you said. The city of Dallas is comprised of 40 different departments, multiple offices, several boards that support many different missions. Assigned, we were talking about that. Each department, office, and boards effectively manages on activities, and that these diversity approaches provide diversity approach, but also introduces a sense of lack of organizational cohesion. The recent city organization chart identify 8 high-level portfolio individuals managed by the deputy city managers, assistant city managers, housing and homeless, public safety. As stated previously, this creates a sizable attack surface for the days of city department utilize department of residents rely on daily to use critical infrastructure, payment cards, healthcare, residents' personal information. The need to maintain current systems technical debt represents the compromise and suboptimal solutions that can emerge during the development and maintenance of systems is normal. Gartner ITS recognized the presence of technical debt. The technical account report identifying the modernization system. Like Gartner told them they need to upgrade. This is clear as a required city. It is may pose challenges for security network. While this may provide short-term benefits, it can lead to risk in terms of cybersecurity technical debt aid. Success of cybersecurity for the virtue of inadequate built-in security measures and new systems and unremediated vulnerabilities. That's not cool. What's your thoughts on that?
Fluff. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah. Once again, it just says we got a flat network and we got a lot of people. So, let's see, vulnerabilities. Like you said, vulnerabilities may emerge, blah, blah. Our organizations need to reduce the risk of entry point. You want to, of course, make your attack surface. Attackers to infiltrate systems, spread malware throughout the systems. The absence of contemporary security features coupled with attackers' ability to exploit the vulnerability to specialized attack heightens the risk. The FBI, after threats, actors successfully achieve code execution on the device or gain network access. They can proceed to deploy ransomware. Like you said, they didn't say how that happened.
They ain't gonna say.
I don't think they're gonna say either.
What's his introduction? Oh, that's after action report.
Yeah, okay. What they did after the action report. Describe through interdiction, mitigation, restoration, our hands, 24/7 efforts were instances where action and activities. The city has developed and maintained a dynamic 5-year plan. I'm skipped to, like you said, NIST. They naming all the cool stuff. The city goes, in addition, important security system. The threat environment can be managed and mitigated to identification and use of appropriate cybersecurity. The city cybersecurity strategic plan identifies several set of goals. The city threat environment through the use of appropriate cybersecurity initiatives. Roadmap, they named all the good people. The cybersecurity performance with 22 categories and 98 subcategories. Of course, they didn't say what any of those are. The cybersecurity program is evaluated. Of course, they got policy, procedures, technology. That, like you said, they didn't name anything. Increase city InfoSec investment. So in 2019, security accounted for 2.5% of the budget. In 2023, they up to 10% now. That's
what I'm saying. Like 2.5% of a total IT budget is like nothing.
Nothing, yeah. Despite the notable increase overall expenditure, the maturity of the IT operation program, comprehensive strategy, methodology capable, acknowledging the imperative of threat landscape. What you thought of that, man? That's all fluff.
Man, I think it's very, very common how it is with public states and cities and municipalities. They just don't invest a lot into the security of their organizations or the security of their infrastructure, and it shows. Right, a lot of times I've come into environments with cities where it's like an IT guy that wears like 2 or 3 different hats, and one of those hats might be a security hat, or a couple of IT guys, right? And then they might utilize third-party vendors for certain things, like a pen test or something, or some training. But yeah, it's just not well funded, and that's one of the reasons why I never went to the public sector for like states and government. Government pays a bit more, but states and municipalities and cities, they don't pay anything to security professionals, and it shows. That's why a lot of them be getting hacked. Like you mentioned, Dallas. I know New Orleans got ransomware a couple years ago. I know, I think even here in Michigan and Ohio, a couple other places. So, hey, you invest in what you find value in. And I think that they're starting to find a value in investing in security professionals.
Well, you know, when everybody get hacked and the money open up for a little bit when you get hacked.
Man,
This is the hot
sad.
word, real quick. We're gonna go through zero trust. Everybody's hot on the zero trust, so you know everybody got to
They
talk
probably just
about.
copied and pasted that in there. But go
They
ahead.
probably
Sorry.
did. I'm now. You're right. I'm gonna skim it. The city's stratified strategy for cybersecurity, securities synergistically reinforced by a security program actively involved in security personnel. System backups following events of 2021, comprehensive and precisely coordinated. We know identity access, IAM is hot. Real-time detection. Shout out to Splunk. Like Gabe said, we gotta have our cloud and we gotta have our machine learning and our artificial intelligence in there. Network behavior, that's once again part of AI and machine learning. We talked about the SIEM, shout out to Splunk. FAR risk assessment, factor analysis of that is a taxonomy of factors. HIPAA risk, we saw that. So they going through the risk assessment they need. 171 is actually more CMC. It's the business part of NIST. Recovery planning, privacy, GRC, governance risk, SOC. We talked about business impact analysis, ranking what services you need to bring up. I think, like Gabe said, I think they cut and pasted this. You know, periodically disaster recovery, CMDB, configuration management, keeping track of your software, keeping track of your devices. How do you do that? I worked at the state. We had 40,000 devices, man. So trying to keep track of those was a monster. Vulnerability scan, and I think this is the part you hit. They don't have any microsegmentation, right? Let's read about it. Maybe they got some. Let's see. The city has deployed a network management technology that allows the city to manage relatively small segments of the network separately than other segments on the network. This technology allows the city to attribute special networking characteristics to unique portions of the network relative to other small segments and to the other.
Whatever they deployed, it ain't work.
So are they saying this is what they're going to do in the future, or you think they're saying this is what they had?
Well, it sounds like maybe what they're going to do in the future, since this is the after action report.
No, you're right.
That's what I think so, at least.
No, you're right. I forgot this was the action. So they're saying now they're going to do microsegmentation, and hopefully that's going to handle their lateral movement.
We'll see.
Crisis.
That's not the only way, though, because even if they have probably have an Active Directory environment, so being able to architect that in a way that wouldn't allow lateral movement between machines, like workstations can't talk to workstations, or workstations can't like administer or manage servers or something, right? So anyway, but yeah,
no, but like you said, it's got to be a layered and defensive depth approach, right? You need to have a lot of actions, and that what helps. And crisis communication, that's part of that. Who gets who, when the call, then when the police, or you can't get the fire, right? What crisis communications, how are you going to communicate? SOAR is one of the hot things. I know they just cut it off, right? And most people aren't doing this. Security orchestration, automation, and response to a group of cybersecurity technology that allow organizations to respond and incident automatically.
Most organizations don't have SOAR solutions. That's like newer. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you good. You good. No, you're right. Because 2 is, and like you said, it's part of the action item. So everybody now wants to get into SOAR and figure out how that works, right?
Because a lot of organizations talk about SOAR and they don't even have visibility into all the segments of their environment. So you don't even know what normal looks like, and now you're going to deploy a tool that's supposed to have some automation involved in it, or some automatic actions based upon perceived malicious attempts. Like you're just calling for a network downtime or some type of outage happening to your environment, because those SOAR tools need to be tuned based upon what's actually there. But yeah, go ahead.
Like you said, you're not mature enough to figure out what your baseline is. So how are you going to have SOAR, right? So, and in real life, we talked about that. 2, application performance management, network performance. You're especially industrial control systems. So
yeah, because they had those water systems, right?
That's true. I forgot those water systems in there.
Yeah. So that's
traffic lights.
Yes. Traffic light. Yep.
I forget about all that. Let me rerun some of the comments. Let's see. A13C. We do some work with small towns. I've been surprised how perfect the IT side is, but I expect Dallas to be low-key federal level. How big is? No, man. Sometimes the big cities be worse, man, than budgets, man.
What do you think of Houston versus Dallas? I think Houston seems like are they better with their security from what if you've
Me,
seen it? I don't know.
I just see more cyber hits on Dallas than Houston, but I would think they'd be close to the same, right? Because I think a lot of times is Texas from the state be controlling their networks even for the big cities, and they make them contribute. You know, the bigger cities in the state kind of be on one budget, kind of get them together sometimes. Try to get those synergies. Hey, can you drop the link to this report? It's in the description, Cyber Scientists. If you go to the description, scroll down the bottom, see if you see it.
I see it.
You see it in there with the PDF?
Oh yeah, the city released it. Yeah, I see it.
Yep. It should be in the description, in the video description. Yep. Oh, there it is. Thanks, Calvin. Yep. I try to be cognizant of dropping those in there. Why would the public sector municipality invest in proper, good, modern IT? That's a good point. Hopefully, we don't end up on the news. Shout out. The government has spent the last decade trying to cut budgets hand over fist, dog. So the proper care of many things went to wayside, but they have to budget for a lot now. Facts. Yeah, whoever made the CC got that's true. Just a lot of places that probably had sysadmins that don't feel like logging in and out of privileged accounts. Yeah, that's definitely it, to make changes in snowballing. Correct. No, I see that a lot, especially at small to mid-size. Like you just said, people have too many privileges, and two is even your privilege account. You got to have a regular user and when you need to do privileged users, and most of my companies don't even split them up for those guys. So.
Right.
This is more corporate now, so that's a good point, Cyber Scientist, with that. Let's see. So industrial control. Currently, the city programs has played a pivotal role in effectively mitigating the threat of ransomware. Secondly, on a comprehensive user education and awareness. And in essence, a diligent IT security program combines advanced security safeguards, impact ransomware approach not only prevents initial infection, also.
Do you see the secondly part? I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The paragraph right above that in essence. Secondly, a focus on comprehensive user education and awareness by consistently training employees and IT teams. That lends to, hey, there might have been a social engineering impact here or a phishing attack. Because if they're saying that they need to, that's like one of the major recommendations that we give if we are successful in our social engineering attack, is to increase the user education and security awareness training for the organization.
No, that's a good point. So you think, okay, let's see if the findings, if they tell us. We got the findings here. The section of document upon her competent incident response. Didn't say anything there. Incident staff, periodic exercise. That's NIST identification. The city commitment, meantime, 27 days to identification, equating to more smash and grab. Do you think 27 days? I thought that was pretty good.
27 days for detection.
Yeah. In the old days, it seemed like they should be in there more than a year. I think those times have come down. But my data could be a little old. Go ahead, chime in. My data could be a little old on that. Go ahead.
I was about to say, I looked at the last M trends. That's that annual report put out by Mandiant, and I think it's actually less. Man, let me find it really quickly because I think I got M trends on my desk somewhere, but I think it's a pretty low dwell time. I'm listening to you though. Yeah.
All right, I'll keep rolling until you find aggressive incident response. The city response to world ransomware in 2022 was considered both internally and externally quite aggressive. Through initial delay of identifying understanding. Organizations typically require an average of 73 days to contain breaches in 2023, while requiring just 70 days on average in 2022. IBM, the city contained it in its issue in one day. They said they're the best, man. They're the best.
Who said they got it in one day? I thought it happened in April.
Man, I don't know. Well, it said right there the city was affected. I guess when they found it, once they had known it, they contained it ASAP.
Well, Cap, because they were even talking about reinfection and everything.
Hey man, don't be messing up the governor's
How long?
document.
How long did it take for like them to find it? It said organizations typically require an average. Well, require an average of 73. So
Yeah.
that dwell time number, and I'm looking at it now. So it says the dwell time is calculated as a number of days an attacker is present in the victim environment. So in 2021, that dwell time was 21 days.
Okay, I think theirs was 27.
Now in 2022, the dwell time is 16 days. That's what they're finding on average.
They had 27 days up here, I think, directly in meantime.
I think that was the let's see. The commitment to cyber program can directly attribute to a mean time of 27 days to that might be a government standard, but where it's going with that, what we're typically seeing in organizations is about 16 days. It's going down, but at the same time, you know, it could be better.
Always can be. Zero is they never get in. It's not the goal time, but shit gonna happen. So like you said, that's all fluff. Subsequent cybersecurity invest.
My bad. I done introduced fluff to it.
I like it. I like that term, my brother. Got the fluff in there.
I hate fluffy reports, man, because I just be reading. I'm like, all right, okay.
See, but you know, I had to work on a master, so you got to put some fluff in there to get to 50 pages, man. 50 pages, a lot of
50 pages. That's a lot of pages.
Hey, you know, but you know, I got mine in 1990. That might not be. Once again, so relevant investments was made in technology, identity access, IAM, endpoint detection, EDR, MDR. Like you said, we talked about they were upgrading the city financial dedication to cyber growth from 3.4 million in 2019 to damn near 8 in 2023. Y'all better be calling the city of Dallas, man. Y'all trying to get on the city of Dallas. Go ahead.
That's not it. It says with an additional 8.5 million for the event. So they saying that they putting another 8 million, 7.8 million on top of the 8.5 that they've already. So they almost they went from 3.4 million in 2019 to almost 16 million to over 16 million.
Over, man. When you get hit
in 1 year in cybersecurity in investment.
That's because they got hacked, man.
Yeah,
recommendations. Let's talk about performance of the review. Recommend review and in-depth analysis of people. Privacy and security risk assessment. We know you got to do risk assessments. That's long term. And two is, and we're going to talk a little bit more, privacy, added on security, privacy, GDPR, CCPA, and even NIST. That's super hot now. Prove data backup and restorations, like Gabe was talking about. Sometimes the backups ain't where you need to be, and I think that's telling you their backups didn't where they need to be.
Yep.
Harden the network. We talked about that micro segmentation on that. Technical debt. They were running some old stuff. They needed to upgrade some stuff, some of the backup. So, you know, that's going to happen with the technical debt. Update the incident.
I mean, the thing about the technical debt is that they probably was like, oh, yeah, we're running old stuff, but they just, because they didn't have backups for it, then that called for the replacement. So a lot of organizations are like, well, if it's working, I don't care. I'm not going to replace it. But they were forced to in this case. Because,
you know, too, a lot of times it's on the string. Once you start upgrading software, you got to get other software upgraded so they can start matching. Right?
And you got to get your service contracts that includes those new instances of software installation. So you got to have, you buy some new Cisco routers, you need support for them too.
No,
so, you know, stuff
like
that.
POAM is shout out to the PMO, project management. This is a schedule when they're going to fix stuff. Because a lot of stuff, like they said, these were long-term. So they're going to buy, you know, maybe some Cisco routers or something in the future. They don't have the budget now because they done spent $18 million. They're going to have to wait till next tax year to get the new stuff. Let's see what they got in appendix, just the standard stuff. I was surprised they named some of their software in here on the information source. They doing some AWS, CrowdStrike, Gartner.
I guess that's where it got some of its because I saw because you would see next to some of them the like the Unit 42 or AWS. Yeah. That's where they got the information from.
Oh, facts. Let's see.
Actually, on that note, PBO, I'm about to drop down, man. It's my
I appreciate.
I don't know if you've been seeing me yawning.
I have good hanging out with me, man.
Absolutely, man. Anytime.
I appreciate it. That's 2 hours. That's a lot for me. So I'm going to hang on probably for another
Dope.
10, 15 minutes to wrap it up, man. I always appreciate when you join me. Dropping
All right,
big
man.
knowledge,
Absolutely,
man.
man. Thanks for having me, man.
You're welcome. Go join Struggle Security. But drop your channel in there if you want to before you leave.
All right. Man. Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that. All right, man. Peace out.
Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Yep.
So we're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna drop down the link. So we're gonna go keep grinding. We're done. Let's see. Life of Love. Let's see. I'm actually filled up with grind. Yeah, you got it. But you know, when you get that master side to side, just man, you got it's hard to come up with 50 paid people who got me over here download framework and up on GRC. Shout out to Peace and K. So and two is you check it out. I did I did a few incident response. Like you said, NIST is going to talk about incident response, how you handle it, poems, network segmentation. I got about 4 zero trust videos that talk about network segmentation and talk about lateral movement, right? So 2 is I like to go over this, and this is really what I do when you talk about a senior cybersecurity professional. You read these because now you got to say, okay, what do they do? What's the pluses and minuses? Whatever organization you coming to or work for, you got to say, okay, what they did wrong, what they did right, what are we doing to make sure we're not getting hit? But like Gabe said, it didn't really say. A rumor was it was a phishing attack. Somebody clicked on something, it got on their box, and they started doing lateral movement. So from a defender standpoint, when you click on phishing, Defender has a lot of the URLs that you click on. It always blocks them. It's got a lot of IPs that are blocked or on black sites that you can't go to. A lot of times you have DLP that's going to block data from leaving your organization. So a lot of that stuff you should have pre-set up. The big thing I thought was missing out of that was shout out everybody subscribe to my man Struggle Security. I always appreciate when we come up. And I think AO brought it up. There's the subnetting, right? Port security. That micro segmentation, and like you said with port security, what can you plug up? Where can you go? But for me, the subnetting. I'm working for a large state agency. Each big agency usually had their own subnet, was divided off from other agencies in other states, right? So you can have that micro segmentation, zero trust to checking the health of your laptop, making sure your software is up to date, making sure your malware is up to date. Also, 2 MFAs going to help, right? Somebody try to take over your machine and they don't have your MFA right, they can't log on. So all that's part of zero trust. So I want to appreciate everybody for joining us. I didn't think it was going to be 2 hours, but once again, I'm going to try to do pick a hack that happens and go over like this root access calls once again, so we can understand what happens. Hopefully they give a little more non-fluff answers and tell you it was phishing, it was this type of ransomware, it was lateral movement from a domain controller, they did privilege escalation, they actually went from on-prem to in the cloud, they got our AFDS, it's something called golden ticket, where you can get on there and you can get somebody's session account and move laterally with inside AD. So it's him, but 2 as an organization, I always tell my boss, I don't want to snitch on ourselves, right? So, but once again, I like to go over root access calls, and I probably try to go over these once a month. Get my man Struggle Security to join us, get some other people to come up and just kind of talk about this from once again a cybersecurity perspective. 2 is you learn, we learn. We learn from this is gotta get your micro segmentation, especially in a large organization. Each division should have their own network subnets, each coordinate. So if one division needs to talk to the other one, they need to put firewall rules on there, right? Because they're not on the same subnet. You can't go from one division or the other. Like Gabe said, it looks like it was a super flat network. So once they got in this Dallas, they just kind of took it over. So the other question we did the poll. I should have created a poll is when do you pay the ransomware and when do you not pay the ransomware? So I'm gonna hang out for a little second. Anybody got any more questions? Just drop them in the chat. We can go over them. So once again, shout out to Struggle Security. Go join my man's channel and check out my man too, Savage Scientist. Go check him out. I appreciate it for everybody joining me. That was that was a little 2 hours. Let's see, Subnet, peace out for sure. But yeah, so I'm glad people enjoyed it. Like I said, hopefully we'll find some more that gives a little more detail. The tool a lot of times is they give the CVE, and the CVE will give you a little more insight on how that actual attack happened. And two, a lot of times the CVE will give you the mitigating controls. So next one we'll pick, it'll have the CVE, and we can drill down into the CVE numbers and kind of drill out and figure out, okay, this is the CVE. This is the CVE usually shows the attack inside that particular vulnerability. Shout out to Dallas. I think Dallas is going to be hiring a lot of cybersecurity people. I think Texas as a state is going to upgrade their cybersecurity. Usually when one state gets hit, usually one big city gets hit in the state, the other cities kind of tighten up, because usually the state gives money down to the cities. A lot of times the Fed gives the money to the state. So when the IRS hacked South Carolina 10 years ago, they funded every state cybersecurity things. You don't think so, Calvin? You don't think Dallas ain't not hiring more people? Come on, Calvin. We can't get no more people, man. Even though they don't want to get hacked, man. You don't think they're gonna watch out for themselves? Calvin don't think it's gonna happen, man. We're gonna see. We're gonna keep track of it. Shout out to people out there trying to find jobs. Keep grinding, man. It's them cyber, especially those remote jobs, are hard to find, man. Yep, I think I did a video on that. Oakland got hacked. They're not Oakland ain't hired either. Come on, that's why we get tough. They got a tail and textual down that they're slipping. Okay. Tail tech and textual down, they're slipping. I live down there. Okay, you probably got definitely more of a heart, your hand on the pulse than I do, Calvin. Like I said, hopefully they open it up, but we gonna see. Like you said, Calvin, we gonna see. Well, I'm about to get out here, fellas. I'm glad everybody joined me. Like I said, hopefully get on live a little more often. I got to get back in the swing of things. Let's see. Oakland hack was unique. They caught them between changes. Comical how they slipped in. I got to go back and relook at that one. Make sure I did that one. There's so many hacks now. Like I said, good night, everyone. Once again, I appreciate you joining me. Check out Savage Scientist channel. I miss program. Once again, it's Professor Black Ops. Please subscribe. Check out the replay. All the links should be in the description. If not, check my about page out, professorblackOps@gmail.com. We'll chop it up. The Dallas police had their own storage issues. They did not fix the process in 2023. Like we always say, you got to pay them now, pay them later, man. You got to pay them now, pay them later. Once again, I appreciate everybody. Everybody have a good night. Shit, Sunday's here.